all that we're doing right now is we're just uploading our modules. So I've just put in the vpc.tf, vpc.tf. Then I'll just commit my changes to that particular VPC. Then I'll create another file. On that file, I'll call it variables or inputs.tf. And I'll copy my variables. Press my variables right there. Okay. Then again, so if we have these variables here, so these variables we'll need to call them when we are passing. And now for the different environments, we can create variable files, if it's for the dev, for the prod, or for the staging. So we can put all these values in variables files, right? Then when we are calling the module, we can pass that variable file for the appropriate environment. Yep. So let me just copy that. But when we are going to push that in the modules, again, we have to clean this up so that our modules are just going with that, because this is unused. This is not, we are not using this, right? So now I can do, actually, let me just, because we have a copy of it. Let me just clean that up. Space, clean that up. This. So if you want to put a default, then right here you'll do default. Default equals to, because it's a list of strings, you just put an empty list. Okay. Availability zone, you can put the same thing. Right? So you're not passing any values, but you're setting something as a default, but it's empty. Okay. It's an empty list. Empty list, default, empty list, strings, default. This is a string. The default is an empty string. You put an empty string like that. Environment.
Prof?
Yes.
Will indentation not matter in a variable availability zone? It's like default is kind of on the type. Is it? Are they supposed to be at the same level?
Yes, we'll fix that. Okay. We'll fix that. Thank you. Let's fix that. Well, that's why we are running. We run a format check on it. So if you do a format, it is going to. Right. So that's generally not how you pass it. So I go ahead and commit this input. Then the other file that I need is go to my provider. And I can put here my provider. TF. Well, this particular module. So that particular module, required version, So in our next version, we will take this out of the module and put it where we are calling them. Okay. Right now, I'll leave it as it is. Then we have the last one is our outputs. Outputs with TF. Copy that. Paste it here. So outputs.tf. Want to get outputs of that, outputs of subnets, and that. Okay. So let's do a commit. Once we do a commit, we have all this. Let's look at our actions. It just created an output, provider output. So pipeline we run, checks for changes. It does 8 changes in the VPC is false. So there's nothing to upload. And then we have to go to a code after you've changed anything in the VPC, you have to bump your version. Okay. So we go to a version, and now because this is a totally new module, breaking change, we have to bump it to 2.0. Okay, 2.0. That's semantic versioning. we're going to commit our changes for our version, the txt. Once we bump the version, we look at our actions, we've updated our version or txt. So our pipeline will run. Okay. Once it runs changes, then it starts the upload process. For the upload process, I'm gonna pick up the runner, download Chekhov. Once it downloads Chekhov, it checks out the code, then it runs a format check. So once it runs a format check inputs, it realizes that it doesn't pass the format check. So your file inputs.tf isn't formatted correctly. So this is the correct behavior of what format check does. It doesn't reformat your code for you, because you as an engineer, the expectation is you need to format your code, but they will pass this format check on the pipeline, so that if your code is not formatted correctly, your pipeline will fail and it will notify you. Right? Because the pipeline doesn't know if that is how you wanted the code to be. It cannot go and reformat your code, because maybe that wasn't the intention. But if it's Terraform, then we are running this so that to make sure that before we build our module, or before we even test it using Chekhov, that because some errors in Chekhov, as I said, might be introduced because of formatting issues, all right? Formatting issues. So you want to make sure that your code is formatted correctly. So right here, it says that it is not formatted correctly. And because I'm doing it in GitHub, I'll just go in there and manually check my inputs.tf file to make sure that I have the correct formatting. If I was doing it on my IDE, then again, I'll just run Terraform format and then do a new commit and push it up, right? And push it up.